Welcome to Let's Talk Money, Honey, the podcast where we break down the barriers to financial success.
I'm Elise Levy here with Holly Henry, and we're your hosts, two financial advisors on a mission to demystify investing, unravel the complexities of money, and sprinkle a little wisdom into your life.
Whether you're a seasoned investor or just dipping your toes into the world of finance, join us once a month as we discuss how to navigate life's financial twists and turns. Just remember, building wealth and living your best life should be empowering, not intimidating.
So listen up and let's talk money, honey. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Money, Honey. And we are recording and launching this during National Women's History Month. So we thought, what a perfect opportunity to talk about all things women. Right, Holly?
Oh, absolutely. I'm so excited about this topic. And I do also want to put a disclaimer that Elise and I have been sick the last few weeks. So even though we're both feeling better, I know that we both still sound horrible, but we are excited to talk about this. And Elise, I'm just going to let you start off.
Okay. So we have a lot to talk about in terms of women, and I think most of our audience knows this. Our both Holly and I have really built our business around working with women because in financial advising, we feel like they're really underserved. And it's just as a woman myself and Holly being a woman, the financial landscape throughout your whole life is just different than it is for a man. And I think it starts at the wage gap, which still exists. I think in 2023, women are still making 83 cents to a dollar compared to male income.
Mhm.
And another big part is women usually are the ones that have to leave their career or put their career on pause when they have children. So that has a huge economic impact on their lives. And Holly, I know you're a parent. What can you kind of say to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I can say as I have two wonderful kids. 11 and my son's 7. I almost forgot how old he was. And I know when both kids were born, I decided to step away from my full-time job, and I ended up taking a part-time job that had no retirement just so I could spend extra time with them when they were at home. And even still, to this day, I feel like there are a lot of hours during the week that I sacrifice that I could be working and further my career, but it's more important to me personally to take my kids to whatever sport that they're in the moment, which right now is gymnastics and it's about to be baseball. And typically you find that from more of the mothers. And I'm not saying that fathers do not step in and help, but traditionally it
Yes.
is typically the mom that is the stay-at-home mom that um, does pause their career during these important years. Because let me face it, for those of the moms that are out there, I don't see how people work full time, especially the mom and the dad, and get their kids to all these practices. Like it truly
Oh,
just takes a tribe. Grandparents have to kick in. I just want to pat every parent that is doing this successfully on the back and say, great job, because I feel like I'm feeling at it all the time. Um, and I can also say that Elise and I have just seen these stories more so from women clients that come and visit us that whether it's from a result of a death or result of a divorce, whatever this life-changing moments are, that especially when it comes to financial landscape, women don't always know where to turn. And so that's one of the reasons why we definitely want to bring light to our women clients to be here as a resource for them.
absolutely. And I know we always talk about this, but a lot of people wait for those big financial events to happen before establishing a relationship with a financial advisor. And so, we can say it 1,000 times, but I'll say it 1,000 times more. It's so important to have that relationship in place and established. So when things happen in your life, you know exactly who to turn to. And Holly and I just love being everyone's financial cheerleader, but also therapist and
Mhm.
just someone to guide you through those difficult times.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel like everyone goes through those seasons. It's
oh yeah,
not as if anyone's going to miss it. We're all going to face death of a loved one. And I've told this story again, so several times. So if you've heard it already, but when I knew that I was going to be facing a divorce, I started going through my list of who do I need to contact? And in those moments, you're just so emotional. So of course, obviously my first one was like, well, I need to contact an attorney. Let's start there. And then I thought, okay, I need to just contact my tribe members, like my family, my closest friends, because I'm going to need people to just support me through this. And then I thought, okay, I need to contact a financial advisor. Like I'm going to need advice. And then of course I'm thinking I am a financial advisor. Like I should be able to answer these questions.
Yeah.
But in those moments, you can't. I mean, maybe I'm the only female that just thinks emotionally.
No,
um,
you're not.
this goes back to what Elise is saying. It's so important to have those relationships established because when I thought I need a financial advisor, I knew that I could call my managing advisor. There are other financial advisors that I have established relationships that I know that I could call and get the answers to my questions.
Absolutely. And I think, divorce, another big one is caring for your parents.
Mm.
I know many times the responsibility of caring for aging parents falls to women because we're naturally more seen as caregivers. But all this landscape is changing. So I want to insert some good news as we're having this discussion. It's not all bummer, I promise. But millennials, which Holly, you're a millennial, right?
Barely, but I am.
Well, the landscape's really changing for millennials, especially when we look at who the breadwinner is in households. So, millennial women are almost twice as likely as women in the baby boomer generation to earn the same amount as their partners, which I just think is so badass. And 40%, 45% of working women right now today are the primary breadwinner in their house and make as much or if not more than their spouse. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you know what? I am seeing more dads step in to be the one to stay at home. And I just want to say kudos to them because I feel both parents play an equal role in raising these kids. And I'm very excited to see women stepping up in more management executive roles and their partners being the ones to let them take those positions and let them shine and continue on with their careers. And they be the ones to be willing to pause their careers and stay at home to help raise the kids.
Absolutely. And I think, like you said, women tend to be emotional, but we also are capable of being extremely analytical. So I want to talk a little bit about behavioral finance and how women actually are kind of naturally predispositioned to be better investors.
Mhm.
Holly, you have a lot of clients you work with. What do you see is kind of the different mindset between maybe a male investor and a female investor?
So I'm just going to give you a scenario that I've just faced here recently. So I spoke with a group of high schoolers about investing, and immediately I had a handful of the boys jump in to open accounts. They know exactly what they want. They're clear. They want to retire early. None of the girls at this point have reached out. At least to me, it just seems like the majority of the time, females as a whole are just more timid. I don't know if we're just creatures of if we don't understand it, we're not going to touch it. To
Yeah.
where with males, they're a little bit more naturally confident, a little bit more naturally arrogant. They don't mind unfamiliar territory. And so for these young men, especially, they're like, we have no idea what we're doing, but we're going to give this a whirl. Um, and that's a very exciting. And the girls are just kind of like, we're
Mhm.
just going to move on to something else, something that we're more comfortable with.
Yeah. Well, it brings up, I was listening to a webinar by John Hancock yesterday, and they did this study where they gave like basically pop quizzes on investing to men and women. And if there was an answer saying, I don't know, women more often than not selected the I don't know bubble. But when that was taken away and there wasn't an option, women tended to score higher overall on the quiz. So they did know.
Mhm,
Their just default was going to I don't know. And I've noticed that with my own clients. I have a lot of women in their 30s and 40s, and when we talk about investing and I ask questions, they're like, well, I don't know about this. I'm not really comfortable with investing. I don't know a lot about investing. That's a lot of the dialogue I hear. But when I ask very specific questions like, well, do you know what a stock is? Or do you know how ETFs work? They answer correctly every time. And
mhm.
so they are well informed. There's just something about being a female that we default to saying, I don't know.
And I agree, and then I wanna even go back to where you had mentioned that 30 and 40 age gap. So I have several couples that are clients, and the females are the CFO of the household. They manage all the money. But it's normally the male that I'm dealing with the investing. They're hands off. They don't
I
typically
know.
wanna get involved, but yet they know the ins and the outs of what's going on financially in their household, and they just trust their spouse or their partner to invest the money the way that they feel like is correct for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do know, like, we do know that women are more risk averse than men. So I think that's part of it. But that can be a real positive thing. If you're risk averse, that means you're probably going to be attracted to like a more diversified portfolio and you'll probably be more stably invested. But yeah, I'm not sure. How do we change this?
That is such a good question, and I think that's why Elise and I are here. Like, we're wanting to change, I guess, the stigmatism that's wrapped around the thought of investing. Like, we want women to get involved. And in fact, with all my clients, even if the male takes the lead in investing, I'm still going back and asking the female, like, are you sure about this? And let's have the conversation. So I'm always very excited when the women are stepping up and wanting to make some of the investing decisions.
Yeah, because I think it can be really rewarding and it isn't rocket science, you know.
Mhm.
Yes, is it pretty hard to time the market and buy that right stock at the right time? I'm sure people who bought Nvidia 2 years ago feel pretty smart as they should. But
Mhm.
overall, it's not rocket science to work with a financial advisor who will show you good products to be invested in, to understand how to tuck away money into retirement, use it strategically with taxes. It is something that can be learned.
Yeah, and I think that that's a key is you work with a financial advisor. It's not like we're expecting our clients to tell us exactly how they want to invest. The only thing that we need to know really is what are your goals? And then we try and come up with this is how much you need to invest, and these are the best ways to invest this money. I mean, a financial advisor really guides you through the process just as easily as can be.
Absolutely. And I think as a woman, I just want to pause and say these are like a list of core things you should think about because they come up, they're big financial events to plan for. So the first one is buying your first home. If you haven't done it yet, that's a big one to start thinking about. Caring for aging parents, especially our clients who are in that sandwich generation, that's something that's going to become a reality really quickly. Divorce, which Holly has talked a lot about, nearing retirement. Another one is widowhood. On average, women live a lot longer than men, so it's a reality that we have to deal with. Owning a business, estate planning, and leaving a legacy for your next generation.
Yeah, that's a lot of things to think about. But again,
Yeah,
that's why it's so important to have a financial advisor that reminds you that these are the things that you need to be staying on top of. Because I think one thing that's really disheartening for me is I see all these women that are around my age and they're opening their businesses, whether it's like they're becoming doctors or attorneys or even cosmetologists that are just flat rocking it and they're pouring all their money and all their effort into building this wonderful career and they forget to manage their finances. They forget to set aside money for retirement. And so in the end, all this effort, I don't want to say that it's for nothing, but when you forget to plan for like these big moments, you now have huge financial gaps that you've got to figure out how to address that could have easily been taken care of had it been handled months, years ago, if you had just worked with a financial advisor.
Yeah, and I think we see that statistic all the time. And it's like the later you wait to start saving, the harder it is. So it's like maybe if you started when you were 25, you could put $100 a month away and you're going to be a millionaire.
Mhm.
Well, now that number's 2000 a month or something much higher to get to that same kind of goal that you have for yourself. And I think a rule of thumb that's always good to keep in mind if you're on track for retirement, by 30, you're supposed to have your annual income saved in retirement. And by 40, that number should be doubled. So that's just a good ballpark figure to keep in the back of your mind because a lot of people just ask me like, am I on track? And
Mhm.
it's not a yes or no question, there's a lot that goes into it, but for that just really simple yes or no, that's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah, and something that we sometimes forget to mention is that Elise and I offer free financial planning to
Mhm.
all of our clients. And so if retirement is really a concern or whatever your other goal is, we have the software that can show you exactly um where you're at and the percentage of the likelihood of you even meeting your goal.
Absolutely, and it is really helpful because I think a lot of people retirement sounds so far away and so big and so hard to even wrap your brain around. It's nice to see the hard numbers.
Well, and I think that we are hitting the younger generation is no longer wanting to work until full retirement age. There are several of my clients that are coming to see me that they are in their, maybe late 20s, and they're saying, I don't want to work till I'm in my 60s. I want to start saving now to where if I'm in my 50s, I can walk away. And there's just a lot of freedom in that. But again, I will say a lot of these are male clients, and I'm very excited that more females will step into that role and say, I want to have the freedom to walk away from my career if I choose to do so in even my 50s. And how do I plan to get there?
Absolutely, and I think at the end of the day, that's what we're really talking about is it's not making you money, it's creating financial freedom, and there's a big difference. And
Mhm.
so of course, we're trying to build your assets, but it's really with the end goal to allow you the freedom to say, hey, I'm 40 and I want to work part time and I can afford to do that.
Mhm.
Or I want to retire at 50 and travel the world and be with family. And I can do that because I set myself up for success. So that's what we're really, really selling at the end of the day, I think, Holly, is financial
Yes.
freedom.
Yes. And I'm going to pivot just a little bit. And there are a couple of times in a female's life that most likely that they are going to come into sudden wealth. Um, One of those is passing of the parents, or chances are females live longer than most males. So they may even also come into passing of the spouse too during their lifetime. And us already having an established relationship with you helps us prepare if there's going to be any type of sudden wealth. And that is such a big topic these days is when clients get that sudden wealth. A lot of people want to automatically go out and just spend it. Buy that new
What?
car.
I would never.
And exactly. And so it's good. And again, sudden wealth, you don't want to bank on it. You don't want to bank on an inheritance. It's a blessing if you get it. But there needs to be a plan in place for when that happens.
Absolutely. You don't wanna get $100,000 and turn around and spend it all. That is not wise.
Oh, no. So we always tell people take at least a few months, most likely 6 months,
Mhm.
think on it. Because I think everybody's first thought is, what can I upgrade?
Yeah,
Or what debt can I pay off? And I am not against paying off debt. Do not get me wrong. But again, Elise and I did a mini podcast of the day of what's good debt and what's bad debt. And so I think, again, this is so important for you to meet with your financial advisor and come up with a plan on, even if you're going to be paying off debt with some of this money, what do we do with the rest of the money? And what is good debt to keep and what is bad debt to keep?
Absolutely. And I think this kind of, and I know we're getting close to wrapping up, but this just gave me a light bulb. So as we're thinking of passing wealth, each time Holly and I meet with our clients, we always talk about, are your beneficiaries up to date? Is your trust up to date? Do you have a trust? And making sure that your assets are going to the right people when you pass away. But also, another important conversation is to have with your parents about that too. Because I have plenty of clients whose parents passed away, who they never made a will, or
Mm.
their beneficiaries were each other and they didn't have contingent beneficiaries. And it took years to get it all sorted out. So that's a great conversation to have with your parents as they're aging before, they're living maybe in a retirement home or something like that where they're still very cognitive is, hey, let's go over all the documents and make sure everything's set. Um, and that'll really make that whole kind of transition a lot smoother for you. So when you're thinking about yourself, also think about your parents.
Yeah, and that is such a key point because, again, women are typically the caretaker. And I will tell you, like, as I'm the youngest of five, so my dad is 82, 83.
Mhm.
And so we've had to have those conversations because he's single of, okay, I have to have a power of attorney. There has to be beneficiary deeds on land and homes. And by the way, do you even have a will? Which he didn't. Um, and so these are not fun conversations. I even went as far as going, if you pass away, do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be buried? Like,
Yeah,
I want to honor your wishes. I
yeah,
can't do that unless we have these really hard, awkward conversations because for my dad, and I'm sure there's going to be other people in his generation, they don't want to talk about it. They
no,
just want to pass away and you deal with it. And as a financial advisor, I want to plan and just make sure everything is in order because if it's not in order, you risk the chance of this going through probate. And that is a nightmare that you do not want to have to go through. It's a costly nightmare. It's a long nightmare. This is not something that you're going to wrap up in 2 weeks. This is something that attorneys are going to get involved in, and you're going to pay them a lot of money that could have just went directly to you if you have a parent that's willing to sit down and have these conversations with you. I will tell you that it took me going to my dad several times before he was finally willing to have those conversations.
yeah, absolutely. And I think every family is different. My dad is a financial advisor, so we talk about death all the time.
Yeah. Well, and I can tell
But
you just
it's really important
it
because
is.
we
It
need to
is.
know what
And
happens. Yeah.
yes, yes, I 100%. And even for me as being a single parent, and for all those single mamas out there, your estate needs to be in order if there is anything that's going to be left to your children. In fact, I have a trust that is set up. And for those of us that are in our 20s and we're in our 30s, we're probably not thinking about what could possibly happen. But especially for those of you that are single, it needs to be thought of, or even let's go a step further, blended families.
Yeah.
Like that's a really big, kind of even a touchy conversation of like, what do you want your kids to have versus I call them
Absolutely.
bonus kids,
Yeah. Well,
and that a lot of
we've
people
seen it
have.
all. We've seen it all. It's
Mhm.
like you can divide it all equally. One account can go to one set of kids, one account can go. It's like we've seen it all and it's all doable, but
Mhm.
it's like you have to have those conversations.
You do. And I know we've kind of like been off a little
I
bit on this.
mean,
It is something that like we could talk a long time about because we have just seen the nightmares that come from it, and we just don't want any of you to face those nightmares.
I can tell when we're passionate about something because we just take a left turn and we just keep going.
Just, we don't even care. There's all these like stop signs, like.
So we have two things we want to go over before we wrap up today. And first, Holly, what is coming up in the end of
Oh,
March?
okay. So March 26th, Elise and I will be hosting a webinar that is going to be geared towards retirement, employer sponsored retirement plans that are specifically for small businesses or entrepreneurs. Now, this is done through Let's Talk Money, Honey. So, women are going to be our focus. However, men, we're not going to kick you off.
Yeah.
So, if you have a small business or you're an entrepreneur and you feel like this is something that you have questions about, and I think that the reason that this has just been on our mind a lot is because it's tax time. People are scrambling trying to open up IRAs, or even SEP IRAs. They're wanting that last minute tax deduction. And ideally, we would like for you to plan ahead and know what your options are, whether that be a traditional IRA or whether it's a full-blown 401k. So we are going to be talking about a handful of different retirement plan options. We're going to go over the pros, the cons, the costs, and how we as financial advisors play a role in this.
Yep, absolutely. And we'll be providing examples for both. So if you're just a one woman shop, but you have taxable income that you'd love to lower, we'll have a lot of options for you. And then also that small business owner, if you have 2 employees to 50 employees, we'll have some great options for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is something that a lot of people are going to be interested in. Just remember, if you sign up, one, it's free. And
Yep.
two, if you happen not to be able to make the webinar, then we will send you a playback version so you can watch it when you're trying to go to sleep one night.
Absolutely. So make sure to grab your spot. And then we are going to end. We decided to start ending each podcast with a Q&A session. So we have one question from the audience from last time, and it's how do backdoor Roth contributions work? And can I do that as an investor?
Yeah, and again, I think this is something that is on our clients' minds because it's tax time.
Yeah.
And so anything that is related to IRAs, it's just a conversation. And I think it's very important for us to take a step back and just kind of tell you a little bit about what is even a Roth IRA for those of you that may not even be familiar with that. So let's first, a traditional IRA is when you're putting money in that is pre-tax. And when you pull it out, when you're retirement age, so not before 59 and a half, unless you want to face the penalty, um, it is then taxed. And so a Roth is almost the exact opposite. So it's going to go in with after tax money. And then when you pull it out again at retirement age, then it is coming out tax free. The earnings are not taxed. And again, that's the opposite of what a traditional IRA is. This I find to be especially key for like the younger generations. Not saying that it doesn't fit some people's plans at an older age, but I find it to be like the golden ticket for those teenagers, those people in their 20s or early 30s, because they're probably chances are in a lower tax bracket. So they're not paying as much right now in the taxes. And so they're able to put it in a low tax bracket. And then later on in retirement, again, they're getting it all out, not having to pay taxes
Absolutely.
on it.
And that leads to another question. Why it's such a great account for young people is because there is an income limit attached to the Roth IRA, which is why backdoor Roths exist. So I think for 2024, the year we're currently in, the Roth income limit is 161,000 for single tax filers and 240,000 for married joint filers. So if you make above that, you can't contribute to a Roth. And that's a huge bummer because, like Holly was saying, it's such a great tool for retirement. And especially with just our government, you never know what income tax is going to do in the future. So having that Roth as either a majority of your retirement or as a partial part of your retirement, you're kind of hedging against what could happen to taxes along the way. So how does a backdoor actually work?
And
So
this is perfectly legal and everyone knows it. So this is not like a fancy trick.
it is. Yeah, it's legal. And it's really good to do with an advisor because there are many steps.
Mhm.
I haven't heard of anyone doing it themselves through like Vanguard or Fidelity, but I would really encourage you to do it with an advisor. And this really should be a once a year thing. So you are taking money and you're going to put it in a traditional IRA. So let's say we're doing it for 2024. We're going to put $7,000 into a traditional IRA, which is the limit for the year, and then keep that in cash and right away make the conversion to the Roth IRA. Now I know LPL has a fee of $40. It could vary from wherever you are. And then you're also going to be withholding those taxes. So you're not dinged on your taxes. And then it's inserted into the Roth IRA, and that conversion has taken place. And then there's a form you fill out every year for your taxes, and you do that every year.
Mhm. Yeah, so that there are a lot of little steps to this.
Oh, yeah. I made it sound really simple.
Yes, and even still, it didn't really sound that simple. And so, as Elise mentioned, it's important to pull in a professional financial advisor into this to allow them to help you through these steps. And I think again, if you're over the contribution limits, like this is such a good way to go ahead and get your Roth IRA because I feel like in most cases, most people will need a Roth IRA during retirement.
Totally. And I think there's a lot of pitfalls to avoid because you don't want to invest that money while it's in the traditional IRA because you don't want to be dinged for anything. So, like Holly said, it's important to work for an advisor because there's a lot of little places it could go wrong. But overall, such a great tool. And if you're making that bank and you're over the limit, talk to one of us. We're happy to help you.
Yeah, and I think again, it's important to just talk to a financial advisor to just see if a Roth IRA is for you because there are some situations that a traditional IRA may be more beneficial. And so it is very important to really sit down and say which one would work. Here's my retirement plan. These are my goals. Um, and see which one is fitting for your lifestyle now. A lot of people are just hearing about Roth IRAs and it's very trendy. And again, I'm a huge fan. I'm not about to knock it. But in some cases, it does make more sense to fund a traditional IRA.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that because I think, people listen to us, they listen to TikTok, they hear these words, and they come into our office with all these ideas.
Mhm.
And, it's really a case by case basis. And we have to look at your financials as a whole, not as just like one trendy thing you want to do.
Yes, yes. Okay, so I think that is it for us. We want you to be sure to sign up for our March 26th webinar. Be sure to look for the links on our social media pages. If you have any friends that be sure to share the newsletter to them. We want to get as many people signed up. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to direct message us on any of our social media accounts or our email. However, we love hearing from you all, so do not hesitate to contact us.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for listening. This is our mandatory disclosure statement. Elise Levy with Legacy Wealth Planning in Reno, Nevada. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Mariner Independent Advisor Network, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Mariner Independent Advisor Network, LLC, and Legacy Wealth Planning are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Holly Henry with River Valley Wealth Management near Mena, Arkansas. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC.